You're going to put something like Murph on and then wonder why viewership sucks.
The Games was a clown show.
They get halfway up there, start chicken wing, and we start...
Same reason why women's sport doesn't get...
I'd love to see HQ sell the games.
I don't know if you heard, but there's a new thing out there.
I've been wanting to show you guys the biltong factory. Let's go check it out. Are you guys ready? This place is pretty sick. Okay, so this room here is where we do all the online packing orders, but let me take you into the belly of the beast. Okay, let me show you around. So this room right here is like the war room. So we do the bulk of the work, all the cutting of the meat, making of the sausages. It's where most of the time is spent. This right here is our workhorse. You just feed it a block of meat, set the parameters, how thick or how thin you want the meat sliced. Does it all for you. We've got the mincing machine. We've got the sausage making machine. And that's all the meat we're about to cut. Come in these vacuum bags and then open them up, pop them in here. Bob's your uncle. Once the meat is cut, we spice it and then we hang it up in one of these drying rooms back here for 4 days to air dry. These bad boys aren't quite ready yet. One more day to go. It's my favorite product of ours. It's called the biltong chip. These are ready to go. So right now, I'm just filling up these containers to go and stock up the retail stores this morning. Oh, it's just so good. In South Africa, it's referred to as black gold because it really is. It's just gold. That's a quick little look at the factory. I'll spend more time here and show you more in the future. Quick little teaser. But right now, I'm gonna go visit my buddy Ty. He helps CrossFit gyms with their business and he's an absolute wizard when it comes to all things CrossFit. So I have a question I want to ask him to help me articulate the answer to. It'll be a bit of fun. Let's go see Ty.
Checkity check. Did you just fart?
No, that would have been insane if that was... I went... If I ever make that noise when I fart, you're allowed to stop being friends with me. That's a wild noise to make.
Oh, this brings back memories, man.
This is good. I miss it.
I have filmed a lot of videos in the studio, but it's been years. We were having lunch a couple of days ago, and I brought up this question that I was trying to answer in my own head, but I couldn't find the words to articulate it. And I thought, who better to ask than the man who's been working in the CrossFit space for 15 plus years, I'd say. You're OG as they come.
Damn.
Not only as a box owner, but also as a coach to CrossFit affiliates and gyms alike all over the world. So the question I asked him was, what made CrossFit special and when did we lose it? Because I recently heard someone make a comment that CrossFit boxes, they're just the same as every other functional training facility, whether it's a Fit Stop or a F45, they're all the same. There's nothing really special about CrossFit anymore. And I disagree. I do disagree. There's something in me that tells me that there's something special about a CrossFit gym. I just can't articulate it. And hopefully today we can answer that. We did also both put out on our stories to the community what you guys thought, and we got a bunch of different answers. I do want to clarify before we start. When we said what made CrossFit special, we're talking about the movement as a whole. So we're not talking about the CrossFit Games, and we're not talking about your specific affiliate. We're talking about the movement, the worldwide movement that is known as CrossFit. What made that thing special, and have we lost it? When did we lose it? So, what do you think, Ty? What's your summary on the question?
So it kicks up a lot of emotions, right? Because when I started back in 2008, and you were so driven by passion to be a part of something bigger than yourself, right? I remember sitting there every single day on main site at 10:59, just hitting refresh on the computer on CrossFit.com, because 11 a.m. our time was when the workouts came out. And then half of the workouts back then, we were just doing in our garage. You'd have to go on YouTube and be like, what even is a wall ball? Like, how do I do this? Show me a YouTube video of Greg Amundsen doing a wall ball, right? And realize that you didn't actually beat Chris Spiel and Karen for the first time, which sucks. That was brutal. But there was so much passion, and you felt like you were really part of something. You were part of something bigger than yourself. You were part of a movement. And, that's what we feel like we've maybe lost a little bit more. The magic in the methodology is still there, right? When it's interpreted correctly, and, we could argue who gets to say what correctly is, but when it's interpreted the way that I think it was originally built out, that's still there. And the magic in the affiliate is still there, right? Every time I go into well, not every time, but the majority of times I go into a gym, you still get it. You still get that buzz. So that's awesome. But as a community, we said we weren't going to use the word community, but as a
I had
community,
one rule is you cannot use the word community, because that word is so dead to me. I'm numb to the word community. Everyone just has used it so much. So that was one strike, but never again.
No. As a large body of boxers, we were all swimming in the same direction. We're all fighting the same fight. And at some point, we drifted. We lost that. We lost this unified direction. I travel the world working with box owners, right? And if I picked 10 different box owners from 10 different countries and said, what is CrossFit? I'd get 10 reasonably different answers, right? And even worse so, and kind of the bigger issue here, and a lot of people, when we put this out, a lot of people have said to me, well, why does it matter? Who cares? As long as the movement within your gym is solid, as long as the culture and the other C word is solid within your gym, then who really cares? Well, here's why it matters. If I go out and talk to 100 just random people on the street and say, what is CrossFit? Their definition is going to be based on the movement as a whole. And that's why it matters. And so if that movement isn't clearly defined and isn't moving not just in a unified direction, but in a positive direction, it's going to drip down to the rest of us. So a lot of box owners feel like it doesn't matter, just worry about your own box. But, that culture is going to drip down, top down, right? It's going to come not from HQ, and I'm not going to put a whole bunch of pressure on HQ about this, right? At the end of the day, we all have our own part to play, right? There's one HQ and 12,000 boxes. As box owners, we all have a lot more say in what people think and feel about our brand. But I just want to address, it is a problem, right? Even if your box has got an incredible culture and you've defined what CrossFit means to you and your team and to your members, maybe it doesn't matter today what the overall movement is and what it stands for and what it means, and whether CrossFit as a movement has lost that spark, but it's going to mean something long term, in the 3-year, the 5-year version.
Yeah, absolutely. I think what you just said about not putting too much pressure on HQ is the key, because we have an affiliate model, right? It's not a franchise model. And I think what I loved about that when I started my gym is that I could use this name because I really believed in the ideas behind the name, but I was still in control of actually expressing that, delivering that, and communicating that to my community and I say community. Expressing that to my neighborhood and my city where I opened my gym. And so, I think we actually, as local box owners, carry a lot more responsibility, like you said, to actually express what CrossFit is, for sure. And I wonder, like in the animal kingdom, the further you get away from the original parents, the more mutations there are. Yep. And I feel like the breed of CrossFit coach and CrossFit gym owner, and maybe this is just an OG, CrossFit reminiscing about the old days, but I do feel like it's a different breed these days. Like the CrossFit gym owner now is very different to the CrossFit gym owner from 2010, 2011. I don't know if you feel the same, but
100%. Like, so when I shared my thoughts on, what made CrossFit magic and when did we lose it, right? I had two main points, and we'll get into them, but the second one was about coaches and box owners, and the quality of those coaches and box owners has dropped, right? I can only go back as far as 2008, but in the old days, we'll say, if you were at a level 1, you were already a strength and conditioning coach. You would probably already spent 10 years in that world, right? You had thousands, tens of thousands of hours under your belt, and CrossFit was just another notch on that belt, right? The problem is it's that evolution, right? Every generation we lose something. We gain something for sure, but it's not a given, right? What we put in is what we're going to get out. So the product gets watered down generation over generation. And the problem we have is, box owner opens up, starts to hire coaches, grows, either doesn't lead those coaches well, doesn't create opportunities for those coaches, or those coaches just do what we all want to do and run their own thing one day. That's awesome. They leave and they open their own box, right? And so that's a photocopy of the original. And then they do the same thing. They open, they grow a team, they don't look after the team, or the team wants to move on, and they open their own box. And that's a photocopy of the photocopy. And this happens so rapidly with the expansion of CrossFit. I've said it since day one. It expanded way too fast. It was allowed to grow out of control way too quick, to the point where it was just unmanageable, right? A lot of people give HQ shit for not managing that growth, including me. But at the same time, how do you manage that level of growth where you've got thousands of affiliates opening every single year all around the world? So you end up with this diminished quality, specifically for me, in coaching. And then to add on top of that, when we're looking at the process of I open a box, I hire coaches, I train coaches, well, how are we training coaches? Because those original coaches came in with a decade of experience or so, right? Then they're training coaches and they're doing the, hey, watch me method, right? The shadow method, which I despise. That's not education. That's not training. That's just lazy as fuck. Right? You need a coach. You desperately need a coach. You're exhausted. You can't keep taking the 5 a.m. class anymore. You've done too much for too long for too little. And so it's just a lot easier if you say, look, go get your level 1, shadow me for a couple of weeks, and magically you'll learn everything that I know, especially in an art form like coaching, where most of it is subconscious, right? And then I let you on your way. And then we wonder why the quality of coaching has gone down. And by the way, I had a lot of people who pushed back on my argument about the quality of coaching. I've visited boxes in 53 countries now. Shout out Finland, number 53, right? I can tell you without a shadow of a doubt that there are some incredible coaches out there. There are better coaches today than there were in 2010. The best coaches today are better than the best coaches in 2010. Maybe a bit softer, but that's just me being an old grump. But they're better technical coaches. They have a better understanding of the science behind why we do what we do. We've shed a lot of bad stuff from the old days, right? The warm-ups are for pussies and just do it, go harder, right? All of that mentality we've lost. But that's the best of the best. The average coach is significantly worse. And not necessarily at the science of coaching, but at the art of coaching. At those little things, at how do you communicate with people, how do you relate with people, how do you manage a last class? For God's sakes, the amount of coaches who can't run a class on time, and that's the most basic of things to be able to do. So, and it makes sense because these are coaches that don't have the hours that previous coaches had, being raised by coaches who don't have the hours that their previous coach, you know what I mean? It's that photocopy thing again. Yeah. So we've definitely lost the quality in the core of what we do, has diminished. It's drifted. And it's a real bummer because I cannot express enough how much I believe in the methodology, how much I love it in what it was meant to be from day one. Not this go into your local gym where it's just a bunch of normal human beings and do part A, B, C, D, E, F, treating the average Gen Pop member like they're going to the games. But in the genuine, we're here to make our lives better. We're not here to get on the PR board. We're not here to try and, perform best in the open. We're not here to try and treat ourselves like athletes. We're here so that I can run around with my kids on the weekend, so that I can be better at that sport that I play, so that I can express my capacity, my earned capacity in the real world. That's what CrossFit was once upon a time.
100%. I feel like it's like it's something that you catch. It's like something that's caught rather than taught. Like it's a DNA or a culture that you catch, and it's like it's hard to articulate because it's so intangible sometimes. You can walk into a box that has the CrossFit logo on the door, but you walk in and you go, this is not CrossFit. Like it hasn't got that heart, that DNA of what I think CrossFit is. And then the opposite is true too. You can walk into a place that maybe is not affiliated, but man, they've got that DNA of the original idea behind CrossFit, you know. It's the waiting around so everyone finishes the workout before you start packing away your stuff. You know, it's actually being invested into other people's fitness, not just your own.
Yeah.
I think that's for me the main thing that separates CrossFit is that you go to any other gym and people are only focused on their fitness, their performance, it's their journey. Whereas CrossFit for me is about not only being invested in my fitness, but also knowing your goals and cheering you on and knowing, you know, where you're going. And it's that kind of sense of, being interested in others' fitness.
Say community.
I'm not going to say community. But yeah, I think it's a bunch of intangibles, you know, like it's the chalk, it's but then on a practical level, I was thinking about this, where can you go, to what gym can you go, learn some basic gymnastics, learn weightlifting, and then also work in metabolic conditioning, get educated on nutrition. Like most gyms will shy away from teaching Olympic lifting. You have to go to an Olympic lifting coach, you know, or an Olympic lifting gym to teach to learn that. Like most F45s or fit stops, they won't touch that. You know, a CrossFit coach is a coach that is so versatile that can teach you how to walk on your hands or climb a rope or, you know, do all the basic gymnastic stuff. Sure, they're not a gymnastics coach necessarily, but they have the confidence and the ability to actually teach basic gymnastics. Yeah. Same with weightlifting, same with all like powerlifting, strongman, all the aspects of fitness that we love and do. We've got under one roof, and I feel like that's offering that not many gyms have, any other methodologies have. Yeah,
it's also a huge responsibility.
Yeah,
right? And I think people have lost an appreciation for the breadth of knowledge that you need to have as a CrossFit coach. Right now, it's just you're a CrossFit coach. It's kind of like UFC, right? There were in the early days there were no MMA fighters because MMA wasn't a style, right? It was you had the judo guys, you had the taekwondo guys, you had the kickboxing guys, and then jiu-jitsu guys came and f***ed everyone up. Whereas now it's all amalgamated into this one style. No one really specializes too much in one side or the other. In CrossFit, we've lost this appreciation for when we're developing our coaches. You're not just developing a CrossFit coach. You can't just send them on a 2-day level 1 and say, tick, done, CrossFit coach, right? You're developing at least an intermediate level weightlifting coach and an intermediate level gymnastics coach and then calisthenics. And like, there's so much to learn and to understand. And the speed at which we just pump people through, and that's coming from the need. We all know that we'd want to spend more time developing coaches, but we can't because we're losing coaches so quick because we're not looking after them. So the speed that we're punching people through, they might have the breadth, but there's no depth to that, right? They're at best an amateur level weightlifting coach and an amateur level gymnastics coach at best. And even more so, I think they're neither of those things, none of those things. They're just a CrossFit coach, which today, unfortunately, has become a bit of a watered down, piss weak version of what it once was.
Yeah, for sure. And when I posted this question, I had a few people push back saying, "We lost it? What do you mean we've lost it?" And to be honest, I don't believe we have lost it. It's kind of like a loaded question to get some responses, but I do believe it's still alive and well. It's just it's hard to find. It's hard to find, and obviously, the founder Greg, who kind of came up with this whole thing, is not there anymore either. And so you wonder, is that a good thing? Is that a bad thing? Is the idea of CrossFit, is it shifting too far away from its original intent? There's so many.
Well, let's dive into that because it wasn't something that I brought up in my kind of here are my thoughts on where we lost the magic, and I agree with the magic is still there, right? It's just not universally there, right? It's here and there, right? It's chosen sometimes. But one of the most common answers that I got, was Glassman, right? That's when we lost it. When he was kicked out, that was the magic. And there's this huge movement right now, especially post games last year, of he's our savior. He's the only one who can bring us back to the good old glory days, right? Anyone who thinks that, you've got a real short memory. They weren't the glory days, right? I'm fine with Greg, right? I'm so appreciative of what he created. The guy's got huge balls to do what he did and to go after people he did, like tried to battle Coke for God's sakes. I'm so appreciative for what he created, but let's not martyr him and pretend that he was perfect, right? Because I was still traveling the world working with box owners when he was in control. And guess what? They were complaining about them, him, right? Whether you're complaining about him as the leader, right? Because it was incompetent leadership from top to bottom. CrossFit HQ was a shit fight. It is a shit fight. I'm rooting for them, but it wasn't magically perfect back in the good old days, right? It was combative as hell. If you, God forbid, if you said boo about CrossFit, if you weren't towing the party line, if you were lucky, you got a nasty email. If you were unlucky, you got an email saying you're de-affiliated, right? So it wasn't like it was this magical, perfect wonderland when he was in charge. It's just now, our new boyfriend isn't being so nice to us, and so we're longing for our old boyfriend again, but he wasn't actually that great either, So I know a lot of people feel like he's the savior, but, and definitely culture-wise, he I was going to say lived and breathed, but he led it in the right direction, I think, for the most part. But it's not a case of, somehow in some magic imaginary world, he buys CrossFit back from the venture capitalist and it's all better again. It wasn't this shiny, perfect world that people really seem to think it is.
Yeah.
And let me know in the comments how much you hated that, Glassman fans. I'm a Glassman fan.
I'm a Glassman fan.
I like the guy.
Yeah. Yeah.
But we're human.
And I wonder whether that staunch defense of the brand and coming after people, I wonder if that protected the culture that we had, and whether now we've swung too far the other way, where there's no one really values the brand as much as maybe the founder and the people that were close to him did at the start, and maybe that's why we've kind of drifted from this thing that we long for, I guess. I don't know. It's a tough one.
He definitely protected it by keeping it out of the hands of VC, right? And also, let's not get it mixed up. No one put a gun to his head and made him sell to them specifically, right? We're in the situation we're in because he made the decision to sell.
Yeah.
Right. Also, cancel culture, he got pushed out. I don't know. Right. We're seeing now that it's a choice whether or not you participate in cancel culture. Right?
Yeah.
So, I love the guy. I'm so grateful for what he did and for what he built. And the same goes for everyone in HQ, right? But let's not bury our heads in the sand and pretend that things were perfect back then, because that gets in the way of trying to find a real answer.
Yeah, for sure. And I think at the end of the day, it comes back to, as a local gym goer, CrossFit, if you're part of a CrossFit affiliate or if you're a coach or an owner, it really comes back to taking ownership of the culture in your gym, in your area. That's all the best you can do is to communicate what CrossFit is at ground level where you are, I think.
Yeah.
There's no point shouting at HQ or, the wider community. The best thing you can do is take responsibility for how things are delivered and communicated at your box, I think.
Yeah. A big red flag for me as a business coach working with box owners is if within our first interaction, they let me know their problems and that HQ the reason for those problems, that I usually won't work with that person. And there are plenty of people out there that, everything would be great. We'd be really successful if it wasn't for HQ. If they gave us more support, if they didn't charge us so much, grow up, take ownership of your own shit. Again, this whole conversation is kind of meta because we can't, unless we buy HQ, we can't do anything about the overall direction of the movement. But anyone listening, any box owner listening, any coach listening, and you're looking at your involvement in the culture of your gym, you can absolutely control that. And then look, if you can create a positive culture, a progressive culture within your gym, then hey, that's one out of 12,000 gyms. We're one step closer to being known for this as a movement.
Yeah.
I think one more thing that needs to be addressed, and it's something that I see again, is there's this very tricky fine line between being a business owner and being a coach, right? And it's, to be clear, and I, as a business coach, you're a coach first. Absolutely. That doesn't mean you're never a business owner, but your responsibility to your members as a coach takes priority over everything. And I'm sure everyone watching this now is kind of nodding their heads going, yeah, of course, absolutely, yeah, sure. But ask yourself, have you ever taught somebody a party trick movement that you honestly shouldn't have taught them, but you just wanted to show them, or because they saw it at the games, right? How many, we've all done it, right? We've all taught someone a muscle up And then they get halfway up there, start chicken wing, and we start shitting ourselves going, oh no, right? This is way too early, right? And then the introduction of everyone wanting to be elite and everyone wanting to replicate movements and workouts that they see at the games, and movements that there's no way to justify. They might be an expression of functional strength, but they're not developing functional strength in any way. And so we end up getting this blurred line between being a business owner and having a business responsibility to our members and making sure they want to come back and pay us for next month as well, and being a coach. And sometimes those two are at odds, and you've got to say, no, I'm not going to teach you that. No, you're not ready for this. No, the second that 1 hour starts, you're coach now. You're not the business owner anymore, right? And if someone wants to do something that they shouldn't be doing, you say no. And if they grab a bar and start to load it up and you've said no, you strip it. Like, you take that responsibility seriously. And there's a lot of people pleasing going on in boxes. There's a lot of, again, I'm in them a lot, and I look around going, why is that person doing that? Oh, because they wanted to. They asked if they could. Well, no, that's, we're the expert. There's a reason they pay us the big bucks. It's because we've done the work. We know the shit. Just because they've read a bunch of men's health magazines or they subscribe to Huberman's podcast, they know more than us now. So as a box owner, as a coach, you've got to be willing to stand your ground and say, no, this is what you're paying me for. And if you don't like that and you cancel, that's okay. Right, the business will take the hit before my morals and ethics and responsibility as a coach takes a hit. So that's, I think, something that people miss, and especially young coaches miss. And box owners who are watching this, understand what kind of culture you set for your coaches. You've got to back your coaches. If they say no to a member and that member comes to you complaining, you've got to back your coach, even if they're wrong. You've got to back your coach, because those coaches need to know that they can do the right thing, that they can follow their gut instincts and be just a coach. Otherwise, you've got coaches, especially young or inexperienced coaches, who are constantly, oh man, if I don't say yes to this member, if I don't let them do that extra, if I don't let them come into an open gym when they're nowhere near ready, whatever it might be, they're going to get upset. They might quit, and then I'm going to get in trouble from the boss. No. Your responsibility as a coach is to be a coach, and that is it. No people pleasing. So good.
And I think that really sums up the difference between what you are supposed to find in a CrossFit gym versus any other gym, right? It's that level of coaching that you shouldn't be able to find anywhere else in your city other than a CrossFit box. And so hopefully the CrossFit movement at large can somehow return to quality of coaching and there's all those little intangibles that we spoke about, the spirit of it. Yeah, exactly. And bring that back and set yourself apart again from the rest of the offerings around the place.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think there's one more elephant in the room. So this isn't one that I brought up, but I would say out of the 50 or so responses I got, this was way over half of them. This was maybe close to 2/3 of them. And I think the people who brought it up, they're wrong and they're right. But I think it's the elephant in the room, and I think your viewers will appreciate it. And it's the games, right? What part has the games played in the long-term direction of the movement, right? And I think the games should be cancelled no, I'm joking. You guys, no. We can't deny that it's had an effect on people's perception of CrossFit, what CrossFit is, and not just the public perception of CrossFit, but box owners' perceptions and coaches' perceptions of CrossFit. There's this massive blurred line about, well, before we ask what is CrossFit, we have to ask, well, what are we trying to achieve here? And if it's purely focused around performance and purely focused around PRs and it's an interior versus a holistic mindset, right? So many boxers are just focused on what's happening in the four walls of their gym, right? As CrossFitters, we are very susceptible to sticking our heads up our own asses and getting kind of consumed by the self-importance of what we do and thinking that CrossFit is CrossFit is CrossFit. That's the whole world. That's why everyone trains. That's why we train. We love it for what it is. For most people, there's something bigger than that. They want to look in the mirror and be happy with who they see. They want their husband to look at them the way he did when they were dating. They want to be able to sleep without back pain or play a sport they never thought they could or whatever. But it's not within the four walls of the gym. And I think that internal obsession that really started to kick off once the games became its own thing. It wasn't just a bunch of fittest people at the ranch being like, hey, who can do this one the fastest? It became its own separate entity. It got its own movement, and it kind of took over. And we were talking about this the other day, but I'd love to see an alternate timeline where instead of the CrossFit Games being called the CrossFit Games, it was just called, the fittest in the world, or something that it was still dominated by CrossFitters, because I believe it would be no matter what. It still used CrossFit movements and methodologies to test fitness, but it didn't have the name CrossFit in there. And so they weren't co-aligned. So then CrossFit remains the methodology and the movement that you see at your local box on every corner. And just by coincidence, those people, the best of the best of the best of those people, also happen to dominate this incredible fitness competition.
100%, dude. If I can go back, my perfect world, Greg says to Dave Castro, look, love this thing you're building, but let's separate it.
Yep.
Separate company, separate name,
Yep.
And keep it the heck away from what CrossFit was meant to be. And yeah, I don't know if you heard, but there's a new thing out there called the World Fitness Project.
So I hear.
Maybe that could be the thing that you described. That could be the new timeline where we actually have a fitness competition or fitness league that's got nothing to do with the CrossFit world, the CrossFit methodology.
Yeah.
But because CrossFit is the best way to train, CrossFitters still dominate that sport or that competition,
Yeah.
Yeah, dude, I 100% agree.
Here's a pathway that I'd love to see. I don't think we'll ever see it, and I look forward to getting torn apart in the comments for suggesting it. But I would love to see HQ, and I think this is a win-win-win, right? I'd love to see HQ sell the games to that company, right? Or any company, and just say, look, here it is. Here's the IP, except the word CrossFit. You just can't use the word CrossFit Games. It's its own thing, but here's everything that we possibly have. The VC company would be happy, right? Because that's their biggest expense. They're bleeding money out of the games, right? It's killing them. The thing that's making them money is the affiliates and affiliation fees, right? The thing that's drawing their focus away from serving the community. It's two strikes for me. Better is the games. So sell the games, right? The VCs will make their money back. So hopefully that'll take a little bit of the pressure off the boxes. Because right now, don't get it twisted. Box owners, you guys are subsidizing the CrossFit Games, all right? Just CrossFitters, members, you are subsidizing the CrossFit Games, right? You're paying the fees that have had to be increased because your box's affiliation fees were increased because CrossFit HQ had to make some money from somewhere because they're losing so much money on the games. So piss the games off, sell them to someone who can run them in a bubble and who can dedicate themselves to just doing that, and doing so doesn't affect anything else. And then HQ can focus on building the movement for the movement's sake, not trying to balance this duality of, we've got to somehow run the games and that's got to be our culture, but we've also got to run boxes, because they are not, we share movements, we share modality, and we share the name, and that's about it. What happens in the everyday box and what happens at the games are completely unrelated outside of that.
So true, man. I actually heard Greg recently say that the games was a clown show, and people that wanted to buy CrossFit would say, hey, we want to buy this thing. And then when they looked at the numbers, they're like, oh, actually, no, we want to buy the the seminars or the affiliation business. We don't want anything to do with the games. We don't want to touch that thing. It's, it's such an easy solution. Just sell it off or get rid of it.
Yeah.
100% agree.
I'll buy it.
Yeah.
I'll give them $20 and a half a pack of cigarettes right now.
Should we bother looking at any? I think we've done pretty well to answer the general, feedback that came from the question. Should we quickly look at a few?
Yeah, let's look at a few.
How do athletes not get paid to go to the games?
Because no one cares. Because no one cares. All right.
It's the same reason why women's sport doesn't get, women's sport doesn't get eyes and don't get sponsorship, don't get paid.
Hit us up in the comments.
It's the same reason.
Look, if people give a shit, then they'll watch, they'll pay to watch, they'll come and buy tickets, they'll buy merch, and there's a very, very tiny percent of absolute frothers. And by the way, we're part of that tiny percent of frothers who love it enough, all right? But the larger community, the largest fitness world as a whole, forget about the CrossFit world, the largest fitness world doesn't give a shit. Also, it's boring, man. Like, go to, I haven't been to Wodapalooza for a few years, but, last time I went, it was so much more exciting. And it could be, at least back then, before sanctioned events and all of that stuff, it could be because they weren't trying to find the fittest, right? They could kind of, they could put a little bit of entertainment factor in there.
Exhibition rather than actual, test like the games,
You're going to put something like Murph on and then wonder why viewership sucks dick? Because no one cares, right? So either make it something that people care about so that we can increase revenue streams, all right? That's why I think what was the fitness league with teams and all of that kind of stuff, right?
A grid league.
In theory, at least it would have made followers, right? Oh, I'm from that area, so it's like my sports team, I'll follow them. But beyond that, it's a personality game, and it's a personality game that a lot of people find, once you're not on that podium anymore and no one gives a shit and those sponsorships die and dry up real quick, all of a sudden you realize how much there just isn't. No one cares, man. And it sucks. I wish more people cared. I wish it was exciting. All right. I think take that. There was a Netflix TV show, the Korean one, that was, they were trying to find the fittest person. The tests were never going to find the fittest person.
I like mud wrestling and stuff.
Yeah, but my God, was it entertaining. Throw a little bit of that in there.
Yeah.
Right.
Actually, I had a lot of comments about the media team being fired and how that was a big mistake. I agree. I do think the storytelling has really sucked the last few years. And if we can bring some storytelling back and just, strip the games back to something more basic and get some real storytelling going, maybe that could help with the game side of things. But did you have any questions or any answers that stood out to you?
We covered most of them, I think. I think my favorite answer, Scott Grayson, shout out Scott, when we stop wearing long socks.
Yeah,
I think he nailed it. I think he nailed it on there. But look, I think do your thing. Right? Build your box, make it the best it can be. Take what you love about CrossFit and install it in there. Understand that if you're only focused on business and business alone and you think creating a sterile Globo Gym environment that also just happens to practice CrossFit methodology, understand that that's only going to go so far. What made it special is what will make you special. And we can all cross our fingers and toes and eyes and hope that HQ finds their way in the future.
To sum it up, if you are a CrossFit gym goer, take responsibility for what happens in your community. Like, set the example. If you're a coach especially or a box owner, you're the one that carry the culture and the DNA. So it's up to you to teach people what CrossFit really is. So that's all I've got to say about that.
And if you're a CrossFitter, but especially if you're a coach or a box owner, especially if you're newer, right, last 10 years or so, go back and look at what CrossFit once was, right? Go back and watch those old videos, right? Go back and watch people like Greg Armandson and Eva T and Nicole, and right, go watch Nasty Girls. Go watch what was the first CrossFit Games doc? I've got it on DVD up there. Every Second Counts. Go and watch that. Go and see what this used to be, and take the good parts, leave the bad parts. There's plenty of bad parts there, but it can be special. It is special.
It is,
But it as a movement, it can be special again.
On a programming side, go and scroll through the old workouts of CrossFit.com and just realize again how simple this thing was. I remember the days where we just turned up. We literally did 7x1 deadlift. That was a program for the day. 7 sets of singles. And then you go home. And you come tomorrow and you do a 5K run and you go home. Come back the next day. It was so simple. And,
weirdest thing, man. Weirdest thing. People got fit as fuck doing it.
And it was viewed as a lifelong journey. It was like, okay, we're going to do this forever, so we can go slow and steady. We don't have to achieve everything in the next 12 weeks.
It's another immature coach thing, right? Is not respecting the member's journey, feeling like people pleasing, feeling like you've got to get them, I've got to get them to their snatch faster, right? No, just it's okay for this to be a progression. It's okay for it to be a lifelong thing. Yeah.
So good. Guys, if you're interested in anything that Ty's doing, he's doing amazing work in the affiliate space. So I will link all. You've just recently changed from Vive Group to just Ty and a Coach, is that right?
Sure. Yeah,
I'll link all
Ty and
the
a Coach.
Yeah, Instagram, Facebook, all the stuff down below. Heaps of great content. So get your gym owner onto it or just go and consume it yourself. Appreciate you, buddy.
Appreciate you, man. This has been fun.
Boom.